So, so as with last month, we will dip in and out of a PowerPoint presentation, and there'll be a short video as well. So I'm going to start by opening up the PowerPoint and bringing that on screen. There we go, and bring that to the beginning. Okay, open up. There we go. So last month we talked about our social identities and the ways that power and privilege weave in and out of our experience based on what part of our innate self is most present, most visible to others, sometimes when it's not visible to others. And how those interactions play out are often on an unconscious level, on what we refer to as unconscious bias or as implicit bias. We live in a society where we have systems of oppression that operate around us and through us that we're not even aware of participating in. They are simply part of the fabric of how we move through our society, in the ways that we talk, in the ways that we organize ourselves. And part of becoming beloved community is becoming more and more ever aware of those places within ourselves that we're not conscious of, that might be separating us from those around us. So I like this particular quote as that is a good explanation of what unconscious bias is. That it refers to unconscious forms of discrimination and stereotyping based on race, gender, sexuality, ethnicity, ability, age, and the other ways we divide ourselves. I'm going to have us play a little game to start us out this morning. And so I'm going to take us out of screen, and I'm going to put in the chat box a link for us to go to. It's a little early in the morning, but one way to help frame this is a visual. So give me 1 second here while I pull into the chat the little game we're going to play. 1 second here. There, share that link. And I'm going to put that down in our chat. And I invite you to go to this link with me. It's a whiteboard that we're just going to play on together.
I don't see a link, Rivka.
It should have gone in. Let me go back again. Oh, you know what? I see what happened. I'm still in communication just with Dave, so I have to make that available to everyone. Pardon me. There we go. All right.
Got it.
Okay. All right. So join me on this screen. Let's see here. Oh dear. That's the wrong whiteboard. Let me just go here. There. All right. So can you see all of the different colored shapes and emblems on the left-hand side of your screen? And in the middle of the screen, you'll see 4 squares. Imagine that those 4 squares are a room that you've just walked into. And as we often do when we come into gatherings, we grab a name tag. Imagine each of these is a different name tag. Choose a color and a shape that resonates for you. whatever speaks to you this morning, and drag that shape to one quadrant of this room. It doesn't matter which color, which shape, or even which quadrant, but just make a choice. And you drag, so you can see, you just drag it over to a specific area. And
It's not allowing me in. I don't know about
that's
anyone
very
else.
strange. Okay, we'll do this a different way. All right, we'll do it a different way. So instead, I'm going to invite everybody down at the bottom of your screen. You see these, the react buttons. Choose just any one of those buttons and click on it, whichever one is resonating for you in this moment. Just take a moment and don't have to even think about this. Whichever one of those little react buttons is speaking to you in this moment. So, oh, someone would ask what a react button is. Down at the very bottom of your Zoom screen, you've got a little panel of things. You've got your audio, you've got your participants, you've got your chat. Right next to chat, there's a little heart that says react. Click on that, and it'll bring up another small screen that's got a balloon and rockets and thumbs up and hearts and a variety of other emblems. Choose whichever emblem is speaking to you in this moment. Don't think about it. Just make a choice.
Zoom wants me to log in on another screen a second time, but the login fails.
That's very strange. That's why, don't worry about the Zoom. Just go to the bottom of the screen we're currently in, our Zoom screen. We won't worry about the whiteboard. It's being kind of funky.
But the react emblem comes up for a minute and then goes away.
Yeah, hold it. Yeah, if you do the react button, there's a tiny little up arrow right next to it.
Oh, yeah, share. Okay.
No, you don't need to share. It's the react button. It has its own little up arrow. And we can take off the share of the big screen. We're not going to use it. It's not working for everybody. So we can just stop sharing the whiteboard. Whoever has shared that. Okay, so that's not working. So there we go. I want you to take a moment to think about the different emblems that came up on the screen. Some people did a happy face. Some people did a heart. What?
Applause.
Some did applause. At one point I saw some confetti go across the screen. What made you choose the emblem that you chose? Or if you didn't choose, which of the ones you saw on screen resonated for you? There's no right or wrong answer. Just want to hear what drew you to the choice you made.
Well, first I put the thumbs up because I was happy about what was going on. And then I clicked the one with the open mouth and the because I couldn't get in.
I picked applause because I finally had found the react button, which on mine is below chat in the listing of things you can click on. And it said reactions. So I said, well, that's close enough to a react button. And so, yay, I found it. But I couldn't see that I posted it, even though I clicked on it.
The things that we do automatically, that we don't think about, are part of how we form unconscious bias. The things that we don't necessarily have words for, about who we resonate with when we walk into a room. That's the reason I mentioned the idea of, thinking of walking into a room and grabbing a tag, a name tag to put on. We don't necessarily think about which pen we're using or the shape that is appealing to us. But then when we're in that room, we'll often gravitate to the people who are similar to us, who, oh, they've got the same, welcome button I've got. They're wearing the same color I'm wearing. We gravitate to that which is familiar. And that is the basis for some of our unconscious biases. What are we familiar with? What are we comfortable with? I'm going to take us back into our presentation screen. Okay, here we go. So when we talk about unconscious bias, there are many different types, but these are some of the most usual ones that come up. We have gender bias, the stereotypes that, when we talked last time about our social identities and social constructs, what we assume about somebody's gender, or even about our own gender, what we gravitate towards in terms of what we think of as attractive or beautiful, and what we find unattractive. The things that make us feel comfortable often are the things that there's an unconscious agreed upon conformity. We all, dress business casual to go out to a restaurant or something. There's an essential idea of affinity, the people who are similar to us, the people who talk like us. Part of that goes into what we were talking last time around our social constructs, the unspoken or quiet ways in which we recognize people who have the same ethnicity as us, who might have the same religion as us, who have the same sense of style as us. All of these things happen on an unconscious level. They also happen in a way to confirm our biases. Back in the Reagan and early Bush eras, when we talked about the welfare queen, assumptions were made about women of color, and that confirmed a general bias that we had, that played into those parts of our understanding that were informed by the social constructs of oppression. When we talk about, it's not being on the street because you see a young Black man who's, hanging out at a street corner. What are they up to? Those assumptions that are made are biases. We all have unconscious biases. The having of them isn't the issue, because we innately organize ourselves as human animals in ways that create a sense of connection. But those unconscious biases are influenced by not only stereotypes, but the people within our community, our family members, the ways that we've been socialized. All of those have an impact on the ways that we relate to each other and see the world. Some of the ways that we do that, though, create the systems of oppression that we live within. Each of us has what's referred to as an invisible knapsack, the things that we take for granted. So when we look at our own lives and how we move through our day. When you walk into a store, does the store clerk welcome you? Or do they follow you around? If somebody is a person of color walking into a store, they often have the experience of a store clerk just kind of following them around because there's an assumption that is made that they're going to shoplift. If we take for granted that we can move into a neighborhood and everyone is going to look like us, we have a sense of comfort. If we move into an area where we have people who are more affluent than us in their presentation, do we conform to the ways that they move around in the world, or do we stand in our own lived experience? We have these unspoken pressures that come upon us. The ways that we live with those pressures, the ways that we come to term with our biases, is we first have to recognize that we all do have these unconscious biases, even within our own group. You know, we have been enculturated as female-bodied people to demur, to, you know, have the big, strong, you know, John Wayne character, you know, get something for us from the top shelf or lift something heavy. That's what we've been told that we have to do. And those of us who are feminists riled against that and continue to rile against that, even though it is still within the fabric of some people's cultural experience. It's not that we don't have these biases. So we don't want to shame ourselves or blame somebody, but we do want to grow our awareness of when our biases are showing up. We have to think about how biases impact the ways that we are received and the ways that we receive others. Sometimes our intent in the things that we say and the ways that we make assumptions has an impact that we might not have considered on the person on the receiving end. We talked a bit about that last time in terms of impact versus intent. What all of this means, though, is that sometimes because it's unconscious, we don't see our reactions, but somebody else might hold up a mirror to us. Quite often we will say, oh, no, I didn't mean anything by that. But instead we're invited into what's called brave space, to look in that mirror. Oh, did I do that? Do I do that on a regular basis? I need to sit with this. I need to explore this. Why do I say that? Why do I do that? Why do I dress this way? Do I have an aversion to somebody who has tattoos? Why do I feel uncomfortable around somebody who has a higher education than I do? We have to look at all of the different ways that we have that mirror held up to us, and we don't call someone out. I mean, in years past, you know, the idea was, you know, we call people out when their prejudices are showing. What we're learning is that doesn't really work. It just makes somebody defensive. Instead, we call them in with grace and humility. We invite them to look at with us how we can be more present to one another in ways that invite our whole being. So we're going to watch a very short movie which talks about microaggressions. Unconscious bias and conscious bias both can lead to us saying things that cause harm. We don't think much of it, but this is how microaggressions, the ways that we act on our unconscious biases and conscious biases, play out in people's lives. So we're going to open this up.
But
Get rid of the commercials first. It's taking a little. Come on, go away. Skip the ad.
Jill, don't think that microaggressions are a problem. Oh, you're so well spoken. Oh, just imagine, instead of being a stupid comment, a microaggression is a mosquito bite. Ugh, it's a compliment. Mosquito bites and our itch are one of nature's most annoying features. But if you're only bitten every once in a while, no, where are you really from?
Cleveland.
Sure, it's annoying, but it's not that big a deal. The problem is that some people get bitten by mosquitoes a lot more than other people. I mean, a lot more. Whether it's on a date.
Oh, your English is so good.
Excuse me? Going grocery shopping. You know, everything happens for a reason.
I'm just buying apples.
Commuting to work.
So when are you gonna have a baby?
Watching TV.
We have to keep the Redskins name. It's part of our culture and history.
Or just walking down the street with your partner. I couldn't even tell you were gay. Mosquitoes seem to pop up everywhere. John, shopping is so bad. I'm here too. And getting bit by mosquitoes every goddamn day.
Touch your hair.
Multiple times a day.
Can I touch it?
Can I please?
It's annoying. That makes you want to go ballistic on those mosquitoes, which seems like a huge overreaction to people who only get bit every once in a while.
It's just a mosquito bite. Who cares? Just another angry black woman.
Of course, beyond just being annoying, some mosquitoes carry truly threatening diseases that can mess up your life for years. Astrophysics? Maybe you should try this challenging major.
Ow, your dreams.
And other mosquitoes carry strains that can even kill you.
He looked like he was up to trouble, okay? I felt threatened.
So next time you think someone's overreacting, just remember, some people experience mosquito bites all the time. You're also exotic. Wow. And by mosquito bites, we mean microaggressions.
So we don't always think about the impact of the things that we say. You know, somebody might say, oh, you throw like a girl. That implies that feminine traits are undesirable. You know, that we have less physical skill from a male person. Somebody who's non-binary, like in the case of my adult child, would often hear, oh, you know, it's just a phase. They're gonna, you know, choose a gender. Or back in the days, for those of us who are bisexual, oh, they're, you know, they can't make up their mind whether they're gay or straight. You know, they're you know, being, you know, flighty, or they're being untruthful. You know, the things that about our innate identity that someone else decides isn't valid, and that our angst is going to pass, as opposed to recognizing that somebody's identity is innate and true to them, and no one can know what their reality is. You know, we might say, you know, as in the cartoon, you know, no, really, where are you from? Which implies that, you know, they aren't really an American. They might be saying it from a place of interest and curiosity, but they're not being conscious of the ways that the person on the receiving end gets the message that they aren't a real American. You know, one that people often say is, you know, oh, I don't see color. Their intent might be they're trying to be equitable, but the lived experience of someone who lives with oppression based on race is that their lived experience of oppression is irrelevant. The things that we say have an impact, whether we're conscious of it or not. What we have come to start to realize is that whether we intend to or not, there is what's called a code. And, you'll often hear somebody who is in a minority group talk about having to code switch, depending on which group they are within, so that they're conforming to the expectations of the dominant group. So when we're talking about code, we're talking about the cultural operations that determine entry, who's in and who's out. What are our norms and standards that we expect everyone to participate in, and who gets to prioritize those? How do our systems and structures have a cultural insensitivity that leaves people out? Our dominant culture, which is, the norm being white, male, heteronormative, English speaking, those times when somebody, is an immigrant or a person of color who doesn't have the same unspoken cultural awarenesses, they aren't part of that community, they won't necessarily get the same understandings. Somebody who is from France, for instance, is going to feel uncomfortable by somebody who's always smiling, because their cultural understanding that somebody smiles when they have something, to hide, like an invading force, as opposed to here, where smiling is what we do to put people at ease. If you're not part of that unspoken culture, you're not going to know those cues, or you're going to have a very different set of cues. A person who is an Orthodox Jew does not shake hands with somebody who is of an opposing gender. When we reach out our hand and somebody doesn't take it, in this culture, we're enculturated to believe that that's a sign of welcome, a sign of friendship, and might be put off by somebody whose culture says, no, it's not appropriate for me to shake your hands. We don't have the same gender. All of these different ways that we set up ways for people to feel welcomed or have to fit in. So when we're talking about fitting in as opposed to belonging, we have to think about those gender biases we looked at the beginning. Are we making assumptions about one another, or are we creating an environment that welcomes people in all of who they are? Some of the congregations I've worked with in the past, who are specifically looking at how to expand their welcome for their queer and trans congregants, had to think about, is the bathroom gender inclusive? Do we have people in leadership who reflect different kinds of and ways of being in the world? If somebody's handicapped, can they even get into the congregation? The ways that we make people have to fit into the norm makes it harder for them to have a sense of feeling like they belong. And so when we come together, I'm going to take us out of shared screen now and invite us into conversation. How have you, as an individual in your life, whether it's at your job, in your family, in your community, felt like you needed to fit in? Or conversely, what has made you feel like you belong?